Genshin Impact's version 6 update has arrived, also known as Lunar 1, and with the game having changed a lot throughout version 5, I wanted to make an updated tier list ranking every single 5-star character up to and including Llama and Flint. The advent of so many new top-tier hypercarry and support units throughout late 2024 and 2025 thus far have drastically changed the metagame, causing many that were once considered essential staples to no longer be as such, and adding many new releases that by all accounts have brought forth the new generation of Genshin Impact's endgame. That, and we now have 3 endgame modes. In light of that, today's tier list will no doubt look a lot different from the one I made roughly a year ago. I'll be focusing on a combination of a character's pull value, party diversity, and performance, giving my own opinions and thoughts on every single one. We do have a lot to cover, but before we start the tier list, let me help you guys out since I'm sure everyone's eager to top up after the 6.0 reset. For that matter, I bring you our sponsor for today. LT Shop is back. They sponsored my channel before, but as a reminder, it's a top-up service that gives you in-game currency at a bargain price, potentially up to 15% off. All you have to do is enter your server and game ID and it will be sent to you within minutes. As you can see on screen, it's a very simple process. Just click on what you want to buy and then put your game ID and server, then wait a few minutes, and there you go, it should arrive without delay. So if you're looking to buy a ton of pulls for Llama and your weapon, you can use my link and get a 15% and 5% off coupon, which can save you up to 50 bucks. Also, if you haven't yet bought the double up bonus, you will receive it by using LT Shop as well, and like I said, the bonuses just reset this past update, so everyone should look to get them. Those who spend over 80 bucks will also get a free VIP membership, which comes with a free Welkin too. Whether you spend only on like Battle Pass and Welkin, or if you drop a couple hundred a month every new banner, LT Shop will consistently save you money over the long run, so use my link on screen or in the description to get started on saving. Thanks again to LT Shop for sponsoring the video, but for now, let's begin the tier list. Alrighty, so here is the tier list for today. We're gonna go through it pretty quickly because we have quite a few characters to go through. I do have some notes which should make it a bit more easier for me to streamline what I want to say. But anyways, you have the tiers right here. There are 6 of them. Starting from top tier, we got Apex tier. These are meta-defining units. You want to aim for most, if not all of them, if possible. Then you have top tier, which are units who are very strong, if not overpowered in the current metagame. And they would be Apex tier if not for the fact that technically speaking, you don't need them, but you want to get as many of them as you can. High tier is anyone with decent performance, but they fall short of top tier in some way or another. Usually because they get outclassed by someone in a very similar niche as them, or they just don't have the damage to quite measure up to whoever's above them. Mid-tier is viable, but not worth going out of your way for. These are units who, if you stumble across them, or you already have them because you're, let's say, a veteran player and you've already built them up, then you're more than welcome to continue using them. But if say you're a new player or someone looking to consider going after them, I don't think it's the best use of your money, basically. Low tier, niche use if you don't have anyone else. Self-explanatory, these characters don't have that much usability in the metagame. They can be used, but there are so many better choices out there. Bottom tier, may someone help you because God sure won't. I think that kind of explains exactly, let me just quickly go ahead and where you at? Yeah, let me just scoot you in right there. There you go. Beautiful, perfect. No, I'm kidding. Alright, anyways, I used that bit before. Okay, we're gonna get started and we're going to go in chronological order. So without further ado, let's talk about Jean. Jean's gonna be in mid-tier. She has a good niche as a Farina healer, but at this point we've gotten so many other healers who can do that and perform in other aspects like buffing, debuffing, personal damage contribution and whatnot, that Jean's not really someone you want to go out of your way for, though she still is a very effective healer for a full party, especially if you're going for a pretty budget Noveletine like Novelette, Farina, Jean, and Fischl, so there is still a reason to use her. Okay, next we have Diluc. Diluc is going to be in high tier. He's definitely facing stiff competition in Pyro DPS. He can still dish out really good damage if you build him with a Xianyun Dragon Strike team like Diluc, Xianyun, Bennett, and Farina, so there still is merit to picking him up and playing him. However, there definitely is a cap on how strong he can get. Next one is going to be Mona. I'm going to put Mona in, I'll say, mid-tier. She does have a niche in that she can be played in, let's say, a Skirk, Escoffier, Farina, and Mona team. And while she's not quite as good as Dolali or Shunhe or Yelan in that respect, Mona's definitely a more accessible 4th option for you. Okay, next character is going to be Keqing. Keqing's going to be in mid-tier. She got bumped up in version 3, but just like Jean, that little bump up hasn't really stood the test of time too well, and she's kind of back to getting power crept again, because you got a lot more Electro characters who are above her, like let's say Clarent, Varessa, and upcoming Flint. To be fair, just because they exist, that doesn't mean Keqing's a bad character, but in terms of relativity, I would like to say it's reasonable to put her in mid-tier. She's not that bad, but she's not great either. Okay, Qiqi, you're going in here first. No arguments need to be made about that. Next one's going to be Venti. Venti, I'm gonna say, is still high tier. He's kind of a niche unit in that you only want to use him for any kind of AoE chambers, but the thing is he's just so good in any AoE chamber in either Spiral Abyss or Imaginarium Theater that he still controls that line of work pretty convincingly. But I think his position in high tier is going to be rather tenuous at this point. AoE is easy to come across now, so maybe an argument can be made to put him here. In fact, actually, you know what, maybe I think I'll put him in mid tier. Next character is going to be Klee. Klee is going to be in mid tier. Okay, quick thing to mention. Klee with Constellation 2 does make her a significantly better character, like enough to put her up in high tier. Maybe not. I mean, I think it could be. I think she could be around D-Loop level, and now that we're getting that free Constellation thing for like version 1, 2, and 3 characters, if you can get her to C2, then more discussion can be had about putting Klee up in here. But I think for the time being, at base, she's gonna be over here. The problem with her at the moment, aside from having a bunch of gameplay quality of life issues, is that there's just a huge wall of other Pyro DPS units above her that make it really difficult to convince me to put her any higher than mid tier, except if you can get her to C2. If you get her C2, then she's going to be over here, but I think for the sake of this tier list, it's going to be mid tier for her. Child's going to be in high tier. He hasn't really moved on from the Child International team, which is starting to get a bit outdated. Still reliable, don't get me wrong, but not justifying top tier anymore. You could switch out Shenling for Mavuika as a partial upgrade, but that does lead to a bit of rotation clunkiness. I think from the point of pragmatism, Child got knocked down from top tier, but he's still a pretty good character, you can still keep using him. Zhongli is going to be in high tier as well. He does exactly the same thing he did 5 years ago, only it's just not that important anymore. He's still extremely effective at autopiloting chambers, and anyone who needs a shielder can just use him, but his appeal really fell off a cliff with the advent of version 5, because we have, let's say, Silali, Shilonen, and Minefa or other healing shielding supports who can do more than just that. As a result, Zhongli's lost quite a bit of market share from that. I think people are still inclined to use him just because he's a very comfortable character though. Next one's going to be Albedo. Albedo will be the next bottom tier character. He really has no reason to be used, let alone sought after in this day and age. It may seem kind of harsh to put him in the same tier as Chi-Chi, but realistically I just cannot find a single instance where you would want to use Albedo over like 5 other different characters. There's just no place for him right now. Ganyu is going to be in high tier. She benefited a ton from Escoffier being included, and I would say that would be enough to push her from mid tier to high tier. Probably would be top tier, but she didn't benefit from it as much as I would say Risley, Ayaka, and Skirk. Still though, considering where she was before, nice upgrade to have. Okay, next one's going to be Shawl. Shawl's going to be in high tier. He is solid DPS and good options for driving his playstyle, but he is still very expensive because you need C6 Farazan, which was worth it back in the day. He was like top 5 DPS, but that was a long time ago. Now we have plenty of other DPS options for much cheaper too. Hu Tal, I'm going to give her a very tentative top tier. She was power crept by Mavuika, but still very competitive and effective, right? Like she's got plenty of team building options and she's overall a very good standard attacker. Really can't go wrong with that. She's surprisingly holding on very well even in spite of the rise in hyper carries, but she did of course benefit from the fact that now everyone can get C1 Hu Tal. Quite literally everyone in the game, if they have C0 Hu Tal, can get C1 very easily, so that works in her favor. Eula is going to be in low tier, and it's not surprising why. Physical damage has not been updated in God knows how long, and I don't think it ever will be because Hoyo would have done it. The last time physical damage was ever visited again was Mika, I think in like 3.5, 3.4, somewhere around there. We're almost 2.5 years after. I might even put her here, but the thing is, Eula still has a good amount of personal damage, and you could still construct a team around her. You could do like, let's say, you could still go Farina, Escoffier, and like some other cryo or hydro unit, and just make like a fake brute force wheelchair team like that. You know, if you like her, you can keep using her, just don't expect any results from her. Koza is going to be our first Apex tier character, still one of the best and most versatile supports in the game, instrumental for Abyss in boosting DPS, grouping enemies being an overpowered flex choice. Even without grouping, you could still use him to just buff your team's DPS because he gives elemental damage, he can give elemental mastery C2 if you have it, and he still packs a resistant Venerer, so you can't go wrong with Koza, still a high priority target, and I cannot recommend him enough. Then we have Ayaka. Ayaka's gonna be top tier. She's back in form thanks to Escoffier, and her DPS has caught up to wherever power creep currently is. Do I think it's enough to put her, let's say, on the same level as like Natlan DPS units? Questionable. However, she too can benefit from the fact that now everyone can get access to C2 more easily. You still have to get C1, so there still is kind of a paywall there, but Ayaka C2 is more accessible for players, and if you do get C2, then she can speedrun Spiral Abyss pretty well. Something to consider. Either way, of the 3 cryo units that came out before Skirk, Ayaka, Ganyu, and Risley, Ayaka definitely appreciates Escoffier the most. Shogun. Shogun is going to be... I'm gonna get burned at the stake if I put her here, but I don't think I can put her here either, because like, if you think about it, she's struggling to maintain position. Personal damage wise, she's officially just been outclassed by Varessa, and then she's probably gonna continue getting outclassed by Flint. And I'm also fairly certain Cloran beats her too. That is a hard sell for her. Subsequently, the only thing that she can really fit into is like Hyper Bloom facilitation, but there are so many units who can do that. She's got good performance because technically speaking, there's a lot of role flexibility, and if you're a hyper budget player, you could still go right in National. It's not that effective anymore, but that's still an option. If we go by the definition of what I prefer high tier, I think that's a good spot to put Shogun. I'm sure people are not going to like it, but I'm putting my foot down on that. Kokomi. Kokomi is going to be in... yeah, I would say high tier. As of version 4 and 5, DPS supporting shot up like crazy, and Kokomi's lack thereof makes her struggle to keep up in the meta right now. Still fantastic healer and hydroplicator with a good range of applications, and thanks to the advent of Lama, she now has a very powerful team in which you could argue she's best in slot in. So maybe I might put her up here because of that, since we have Kokomi, Lama, Nahida, and Nilu, which I'm making this tier list before Lama officially comes out, but based on what the recrafters have told me, we're all expecting it to be like top 10 if not top 5 best teams. So for that reason, maybe it's good enough to put her up there. Aloy, no one likes you. Ito is going to be mid-tier. Mono Geo is just not very competitive right now, and Ito's pull value is in the toilet because of how much investment has to go into him to achieve a not very competitive status. I might even put him here because of how many hoops you have to jump through, but worst comes to worst, you can always do just a general wheelchair comp like Ito, and then, you know, like Shilonen, Farina, and just like random generic DPS boosting supports. So you can put him there, but I might even go so far as to put him here. Just Ito, he needs a more updated Mono Geo team, and then we can discuss if we want to put him high tier or above. But from what history suggested, in terms of recent Geo units, I just don't think it's going to happen. Shunhe is going to be in high tier. She technically benefited from Escoffier, but Ayaka, Ganyu, and Risley can easily substitute Shunhe for someone else, while she can't function outside of them. There's going to be a lot of cryo units or a lot of units up here that could realistically use Shunhe, but she's very exchangeable, if that makes sense. Or you can definitely swap her for someone else. It's enough to put her in high tier. She's a very meta-relevant character, but her niche is ever so slightly too strict, and she's not the only fish in her pond either. Yaemiko is going to be in high tier, I would say high tier. Personal damage oriented sub DPS, which currently isn't that valuable in the metagame compared to buffing main DPS, but she still retains good party versatility, and she does accomplish what's required of her without issue. But circumstantially, with the exception of maybe a Flynn Zenefa Taser team, her pull value has dropped down quite a bit, so she's more of a high tier character, not really a top tier character. Ayato's going to be in mid tier. As I covered in my Why No One Plays Ayato video a while back, he just doesn't do enough damage. His application is where he's at his best, but application isn't really that big of a deal anymore. He still does what he's meant to do extremely well, but as the mid tier implies, it's not something you really need to go out of your way for. Yelan's going to be in top tier. One of the best sub DPS units in the game. Good personal DPS buffing, which is a big deal in the hypercarry meta. She does amazing damage herself, she's easy to use, and she fits into pretty much any normal attack-based hypercarry team, of which there are a lot of them. Tignati is going to be in mid-tier. He got power crept by I'll Hate Them and Nahida when they came out, and he also fell off when Dendro started to fall off in version 4 and 5. It is coming back thanks to Lama, but I don't think Tignati is really going to be moving from this position that much. Sino is going to be in mid-tier as well. He just doesn't do enough for how much is expected from him, you know? Like, he's very similar to Ito where he needs ungodly amounts of investment, but at that point, you could just use it on someone better than him, and the fact that when he came out, he wasn't even that much better than Koting, if not better at all, just... I don't think he's low tier, he's not low tier, but you just can't really go any higher than this. Next character, where are we at? We're at Nilou. Nilou is going to be in potentially, like very potentially. No, not Apex tier, definitely not Apex tier. Question mark? No, I'll say top tier. She fell off quite a bit circumstantially due to AoE just being more accessible and us switching from a reaction meta to a hyper carry meta, but Llama is out. Plus, level 100 is out, and Nilou benefits from level increases more than any other character because of Bloom's base damage, which then gets converted into Bountiful Bloom. Nilou got tremendously buffed in version 6.0, and I think for that reason she's back to being up here. I don't think she's up here because she's ultimately way too niche to be up there, but she is more than deserving of a spot in top tier again. Nahida is going to be in top tier still. No, I don't consider her to be Apex anymore. Still one of the best Dendro units in the game, if not the absolute best versatility wise, but like I talked about in my Llama video, she now has someone who basically competes in the exact same niche that she does, applicably speaking. I know that Llama only plays into Bloom, but Bloom has always been the older sibling of the Dendro reactions. 90% of the time we're talking about Bloom or Quick Bloom, right? However, in a similar fashion to like the Yelan Xingqiu argument back in the day, just because one character exists doesn't always mean you can't use the other. There is opportunity cost and there is relative power comparison, which is why I put her in top tier and not Apex tier, but she still is a top tier character. Still has all the strengths that she had before. Wander is going to be in mid tier, kind of the same problem as Shao, only worse, right? Like he's weaker than Shao and it requires almost the same investment as Shao. Well, maybe not necessarily because you could swap out, like, you don't need to get Shenyun. But still, like Wander is just not really a character that has that much prominence in the metagame right now, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon because we have Chaska. Alright, I'll hate them is going to be top tier. Maybe not top tier, I think I might put him in high tier because he's still very contingent on Dendro as a whole, and though Llama helps him out a lot, Llama by extension helps out every other Dendro character, and it's still, I don't think, enough to a point where he should be back here again. Like, just the personal damage floor and or ceiling of every other character that came out after him is just so high that I'll hate them really can't compete with them. It's similar to let's say like Shao, where I'll hate them is a very good character if you invest in him, but if you were to take that same investment and apply it to any of the Nadland units, or let's say Neuvillette or someone like that, even though they may not be Dendro characters, they will do better than I'll hate them, like at the end point. High tier character, great performance, not really worthy of top tier anymore. Dia, I'm gonna put Dia in low tier. She found enough usability to not be bottom tier, but all of those use cases are just so niche and weird and just obscure and obtuse that it just doesn't really measure up to anything practical. So I think we'll put her in low tier. Baiju is going to be probably top tier again. Used to be Apex tier, in my opinion. You just copy paste what I said about other Dendro units to Baiju. That being said, Llama came in, and unlike Nahida, Baiju doesn't have to compete with Llama. In fact, there are some cases where you wouldn't want to run them together. Same applies to Nahida, mind you, but yeah, I think that Baiju is probably okay being in top tier again. Some people might argue you want to put him in high tier because they're just other like characters who can do more things in the teams that you want to put him in, but I think it's okay to put him up here for now. Alright, let's talk about Linny. Where the hell is he? There he is. Linny is going to be in probably high tier. I would say he's the least talked about pyro DPS among the modern generation, but he's more competitive than a lot of his peers. He benefits greatly from allowing a flex option, since you only need 3 pyro on him, and in some cases you don't even need to go 3 pyro on him, just going 2 pyro can work too. Maybe I can put him up here actually. Maybe. I don't want to overbloat top and Apex tier too much. Would I say that Linny offers more damage contribution than the units in here? Most definitely, so maybe I could put him here. Next unit's going to be Neuvillette. Neuvillette's also going to be a questionable, I would say questionable Apex tier. I say questionable because from the perspective of damage, he has gotten beaten many times now at this point. A lot of Nadland units can out DPS him, and we also have Mavuika and Skirk and Arlecchino and those kinds of characters. So if we're talking about getting the most amount of damage possible, Neuvillette is no longer in that discussion, or rather he never was in that discussion. Do I want to value his ease of use, his party versatility, his stability, and overall coverage enough to make him an Apex tier character? Debatable, right? It all comes down to what you prioritize. I still think Neuvlette's a character who, if you ask a new player, is it worth getting this character? Yeah, 100%. Do I think he's someone who shapes the meta? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that Neuvlette set the standard, right? He set the standard for the next generation of damage dealers, and pretty much anyone who wants to be worth talking about or worth consideration has to do as much as him, if not more. And that's basically what they did for Nanlan. Like, Neuvlette set the standard for all Nanlan DPS units, who basically do the same damage as him, if not more. For that reason, he, for all intents and purposes, is meta-defining, because he is the standard that is the metagame. So I would put him in Apex tier for that, but there is a justification for positing that he no longer is Apex tier anymore. I still think Neuvlette's deserving of Apex tier. A tentative placement, and it can change when we get more Hydro attackers, but for now, as of version 6.0, I still think he deserves to be there. Wriothesley, I'm gonna say Wriothesley is high tier. He's the midpoint between Ganyu and Ayaka in that he got more than Ganyu from Escoffier and less than Ayaka, but I think strength-wise he doesn't quite climb up here. I don't know, maybe you can argue now that we have Escoffier, he's around like Linny level of power, so he should be up here. And he is easier to play than Ayaka. For Ayaka, if you miss your burst, you're basically screwed. Whereas Wriothesley's a very brain-dead character, and that does help in consistency. I could put him here. I could. Next unit, Furina, another Apex tier character. Unsurprising, she's indisputably one of the best hyper carry supports in the game, and this become even easier to use now that we have a whole bunch of healers. Presently, I would put Furina in top 3 most valuable Genshin characters at the moment. She is more than deserving of Apex tier. There is no possible explanation why she would not be any lower than this. Navia is going to be in top tier. Very simple. She's very strong and surprisingly has a good amount of party diversity. You just need 2 of any PHEC characters, and you could also have 2 of the same elemental characters. You could do 2 Pyro, 2 Hydro, 2 Electro. So you could use a lot with her, and she did get quite a bit of help with Shilonen existing, being her secondary Geo character. So Navia will be holding on very comfortably in top tier. I don't think there's any arguments against that. Next we have Xianyun. Xianyun is going to be in top tier. She has a primary niche in buffing plunging attack damage, which applies to quite a few characters, or enough to make it considered non-negligible, and she's also just a good companion unit for Furina. Not to mention, being an Anemo unit, you can run Virtus and Vener on her, so it's enough to make her versatile to the point where I would consider her top tier. Okay, now we have Chiori. Chiori is going to be in high tier. There's a very easy duo combination you can play with her in Chiori and Shilonen, which can be played with any 2 characters that could also be played together. For example, Chiori, Shilonen, Furina, and Neuvlette. Yes, you only get 1 elemental reaction, but that does work. You can do Chiori, Shilonen, and then Mavuika Solali. Like, she's a niche character, but if you do have Shilonen, you can effectively play her in any possible team you can think of that can afford to have 2 characters just sit there and exist on their own. Is it worth putting her up any higher than high tier? No. But I think this is a good spot for her. Some people might say she's mid tier, I think she's high tier. Arlecchino is going to be in top tier. She would have been Apex tier pre-Mavuika, and she's still easily one of the best attackers in the game. A lot more party diversity despite not being able to heal, and I would argue she's more likely to survive power creep pressure than either Hu Tao or Linny, thanks to having less restrictions than Linny and being more modern than Hu Tao. People might look at this and go, why the hell are you putting Linny and Hu Tao in the same tier as Arlecchino? Picture it kind of like a spectrum where Arlecchino has, let's say, 99% and Hu Tao and Linny have 91%. Using the American grading system, Arlecchino is essentially an A+ student, while Hu Tao and Linny are A- students. So they're still A students, technically speaking, but if you take a closer look, there is a disparity. Clorinde. I think Clorinde could be top tier. The jury's still out on where she actually is. A lot of people think she's here, some people think she's here, some people think she's here. The reason I say this is because certain teams, if you build them correctly, could put Clorinde on the same level of power as Natlan DPS characters. So it would be unfair to put her below top tier. That's my justification. You could play her for Quick Bloom, you could play her for Overload. Overload in particular is helping her out a lot. I'm not sure what the consensus is among the crafters because I asked like 6 people and they all gave me a different answer. But using my expert feels crafting abilities, I'm going to say she's more of a top tier character because if she can pump out similar damage, maybe not like exactly the same, but very close to Natlan DPS units, then there's no reason she shouldn't be top tier. Sijun, I'm gonna put Sijun in probably mid tier. She's like a side grade, a situational side grade to Kokomi, if not a downgrade to Kokomi. And more often than not, she's a downgrade to Kokomi. So I think, is it justified to put them 2 tiers apart from each other? Maybe not, but I think we'll put her here for now. Then we have, where the hell is she? Okay, Emily. Emily is going to be top tier. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, Emily has some of the worst party versatility in the game. But she's so f***ing strong that if you can get carried by Kanish in an Emily-Kanish burning team, based on that, it is enough for me to consider Emily to be a top tier character. Because in the team that you can use her in, despite it being only one team, as of right now, she's ridiculously overpowered in that team. Alright, we're at version 5. Mulani is going to be in top tier. Bustin' Hydro attacker, strong as balls and got that big PP screenshot damage. Decent range of supports to play with, and isn't too incompetent in AoE scenarios either. So you can play around her quite a bit, and you can play with her quite a bit. And yeah, she just does pretty good damage. Next character is going to be Kanish. If Emily's up here, so is Kanish. These two are a piece in the pod. If you don't have Kanish, then you know Emily's down here. But if you do have Kanish, then she's up here. I would say these two are pretty good to be putting right here. Next one's going to be Shilona. Shilona is going to be the 4th Apex tier character. No explanation needed, she's the same universal buffing utility as Kasaha, you just trade grouping for healing. I would argue circumstantially Shilona might be even more valuable than Kasaha because Natlan is just so prominent and Shilona is necessary for a lot of Natlan units. Oh, plus Farina utility. But they're still really close to each other, these 4, you know, Apex tier is Apex tier. Next one we have Chaska. Chaska is also going to be top tier. Amazing single target DPS character who can bypass a lot of stupid gimmick enemies, especially given the fact that she can move around while attacking, and she's suspended in the air, so any earthquake based attacks can be avoided. You have plenty of PHAC characters to play with, and even though unlike Navia you do need to have different ones, it's not a hard requirement to fulfill anymore. We have plenty of them, 4-star and 5-star. Mavuika, unequivocally the best character in the game at this point. I'll confess, I was very hard on her when she came out. The Natlan character requirement thing I still stand by, but very similar to Farina because people were saying, oh, the healing thing is kind of hard to achieve. More Natlan units came out, or should I say enough Natlan units came out to where you can easily drive up Mavuika's fighting spirit stacks to not consider it an issue anymore. And even if you can't, her ability to play for off-field purposes still covers her in that department. If there's ever a character that's considered a must-pull, that every single Genshin Impact account, I don't care whether you're a free-to-play player, a day 1 player, a day 900, 7,000, whatever, you know, however long you've been playing, whatever circumstance you are in, every account that wants to take on the endgame must have Mavuika. I mean, frankly, I'd advise every account that wants to take on the endgame should have all Apex tier characters. Maybe not Novelette, but definitely these 4. Next one's going to be Solali. Solali is going to be either Apex tier question mark or top tier. I want to put her in top tier, or not top tier, I want to put her in Apex tier because though she can only realistically buff Pyro and Hydro, that's a lot of teams if you think about it, right? And her general buffing utility in that she can equip Natlan Cinder City artifact set, she can equip Drilling Tails, she can buff a lot of characters, do her own damage as well. It would be enough for me to consider putting her in Apex tier. She has a lot of circumstantial usability. Objectively speaking, her versatility is kind of low, but in the current meta we're in, Solali would be Apex tier, I would argue. Next unit is going to be Yume Misugi. She's going to be in low tier. No real niche that you can use her in besides like a taser driver, but there's just so many other characters who can do that better than her, and healing wise, she's just worse than Jean for like the purposes of driving Farina fanfare stacks. A gimmicky character, use her if you feel like it, otherwise no real reason to care about her. Veressa is going to be in top tier. Like with all the Natlan units, she's pretty damn strong if you build her correctly. And I would say she actually can dish out just a bit more damage than Chaska, Kanish, and Mulani, like just a bit more, but they're still all roughly around in the same ballpark. Then we have Escoffier. Escoffier is going to be in top tier. She single-handedly made 3 DPS characters go from low/mid tier to meta relevant, if not meta dominant again. I dislike her purpose in the game and how Hoyo is navigating the game balance with this Escoffier, but I will acknowledge that this character is just absolutely insane. On second thought, I might put her in Apex tier. She can only really buff Hydro and Cryo, but we have very relevant Hydro and Cryo attackers at the moment. Kind of like Solali, I guess, where she has a niche, but right now that niche is just so dominant that you can't disregard it as a niche. It is the meta. So yeah, I'll say Escoffier deserves to be up here. You could basically take her, Farina, and then like an extra Hydra unit or whatever, and use that to wheelchair everything else. Probably, yeah, I'll put her up here. Skirk will be Apex tier as well. Number 2 attacker in the game behind Mavuika in terms of raw damage, and if you build her properly, actually, I'm not sure if did my friends ever get back to me? I might have to ask them actually. I don't know if theory crafters have conclusively decided whether Skirk does more than Mavuika in terms of like the most peak damage you can actually obtain. But even if she doesn't, she's number 2 by like a definitive margin. Like, let's say arbitrarily speaking, you have 9 DPS students who do like, let's say 100k DPS, right? Again, arbitrary, just for the sake of argument. And then you have Skirk and Mavuika who are up in like the 140s, 150s. Like, they are entire football fields bigger in big PP damage than the 9-line characters. And the 9-line characters are football fields ahead of the previous generation of attackers. So that kind of gives you some perspective on how powerful Skirk is if you build her correctly. She's much less versatile to build than Mavuika, but Skirk and Mavuika are the characters to beat right now. Okay, we have Nefa. Nefa is going to be in top tier. A shielder, taser, overload driver. Very strong, very relevant, and she's going to benefit from Flints coming out in a couple weeks. So I might put her up here, maybe up here, but I think for now we could just put her over here. Then we have Llama. Llama will be Apex tier. She is the new Nahida. Full stop. Her inclusion basically saved Dendro. She is the same as Escoffier, but for Dendro, essentially. I think she's going to be developing quite a bit too, because they're pushing a lot of Electro and Dendro units in the game right now. I do not think this is the end of the rise of Dendro 2.0. I think Llama might even get stronger. So for the time being, we're going to put her in Apex tier. Alright, and we got the last character, we got Flints. So I'm going to be uploading this video before he comes out. And I can't actually say what he does. Just take my word for it, he's in the top tier category. Alright, so that concludes my updated tier list on all 5-star characters in Genshin Impact as of version 6.0. Let me just run through one more time to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Oh, Yoimiya, what the hell? my bad. Okay, Yoimiya I'm gonna put in mid tier. Yeah, we'll put her in mid tier. Kind of in the same ballpark as like clean stuff. Yeah, we'll put her there. My bad, I completely forgot about Yoimiya. I don't know how I missed over her. People are gonna be screaming at me. But anyways, now we're done. That should wrap up my tier list on Genshin Impact's 5-star characters. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, disputes, you're most definitely gonna have disputes. But if I do say so myself, I don't think this tier list was too, like, bias is not the right word, but you get what I mean. I don't think this is a very unreasonable tier list, placement-wise. I feel like I gave a decent amount of credit to characters, and I wasn't being overly generous with any of them except possibly Silali and Neuvillette. But I think this is what we're going to end off with. If you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @VarsRM, join my Discord server, and I guess why not check out my video on Llama if you haven't yet. It just came out a couple days ago, if not the day before. I plan to also update my best team for every 5-star character video, which actually I think that might come out before this one, I'm not sure. But regardless, till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.